Chief Judge Glanville has released the ex parte hearing transcript without any redactions. Alright, so here's the full transcript document right here. I'll be reading it and trying to edit it down to the best parts. The defense is upset that they weren't a part of this ex parte meeting, and they think that there was some coercion in here, so we're going to read it and see if there is. The judge today basically said everything was proper, so here we go. Let's get it. Ex parte hearing began at 9:10 a.m. Present in the chambers were Judge Glanville, Assistant DA Miss Love, Attorney Kayla Bumpus, Woody's lawyer, Court Reporter Christina Weaver, and Investigator Tanio Long and Rashid Hamilton. The concern that we wanted to bring to the court's attention as the state was twofold. We wanted to have the opportunity to impress upon Mr. Copeland with representation present that he faces, and we wanted to give him an opportunity to ask whatever questions he wanted to ask before we had to pull him in the courtroom when the jury came out. The second concern that I have is, and I wanted to bring to the court's attention in line with the concern that I expressed on the record Friday, I don't know what advice counsel may have offered or may be offering. That is their right and their business. As it relates to testifying, however, I do not believe that criminal exposure is a concern, that is, which interest is being spoken about and protected. Miss Love had this narrative that Woody's representation wasn't acting in the best interest for him, and they were acting in the best interest for the defense attorneys and the defendants. But I honestly think this was all made up in her own head. Mr. Melnick was Woody's first lawyer. Relayed to Miss Hilton on Friday that he had never heard of statute 24-5-507, and on Friday he sent an email. I don't know if he had unintentionally put my name on it, but he sent an email to Mr. Steele and Mr. Sharp with me, and Simone copied, where he said, "This is the communication that I received from Miss Love regarding Mr. Copeland." My response was, whose interests are you protecting? Yours or Mr. Steele's? Whose clients? Which client are you protecting? Whose client? Yours or Mr. Steele's or Mr. Sharp's? He wrote back and said, "You are going to get him killed. You have made him and you are making him a target. Fuck you." Mr. Melnick going out with a bang, defending his client. So given that his concern is that by testifying, at least the one that he conveyed to me in writing, his concern has nothing to do with the exposure from the state. His being whose concern? Mr. Melnick. If the interest that he is protecting is Mr. Copeland's freedom, he did not convey it by asking us what exposure does he face in testifying. In fact, if he's concerned that testifying will get Mr. Copeland killed and then he is not communicating with us, he's communicating with counsel for defendants, it would seem that he knows a thing or something that we don't know. No. It's common sense. People that testify become targets. What is she yapping about? Just because he transferred this to the defense, I don't see that as him siding with the defense. Additionally, and I will let Ms. Bumpus tell you, he has said if Mr. Copeland testifies, he's no longer representing Mr. Copeland, which is strange because if your interest is in your client, then it would seem you would want to be there for him while he is testifying. Well, he is on vacation this week, the judge said. Miss Love, I understand. That is why he had Ms. Bumpus here and he has said what he has said. And I was reading the statute about this particular situation. I was reading our rules, our ethic rules, rules of conduct for attorneys. There were two things that were happening. One, Mr. Melnick had told me that he wasn't Mr. Copeland's lawyer. Mr. Copeland has told Miss Hilton that Mr. Melnick wasn't representing him. And then rather, Mr. Copeland was reaching out to Mr. Melnick. Apparently, Mr. Melnick in communication with Mr. Steele and Mr. Sharp and Mr. Melnick reached out to Mr. Copeland and injects himself into these proceedings. What we were discussing was in no way a matter that Mr. Melnick was representing Mr. Copeland on, and that is where we are not allowed to speak with a person when they are represented by counsel. Mr. Melnick could not have been representing Mr. Copeland on anything we were talking about because we were talking about this case and this trial. All that aside, we would like an opportunity for the court to address Mr. Copeland with Mr. Copeland's stand-in counsel present. Miss Bumpus is looking at me like I'm listening. Miss Bumpus is going to be funny as shit in this whole interaction. Just be ready. Miss Love says, with his stand-in counsel present and to allow Miss Bumpus an option to explain to Mr. Copeland everything that I've just said. Her concern outside was what is the longest he can stay in jail. What I relayed to her is that the statute says until he purges the court by testifying. Miss Love, his contempt by testifying. The court, yeah, 507 is a little bit different. Miss Bumpus, so until the end of this, the court, he can be there until the end of the trial. Miss Bumpus, that is what I said. To the end of the trial is the longest. Miss Love, no, it's not the longest. If a person has been subpoenaed to testify before the grand jury, and even after the grand jury has, convened, has left, the person can stay until the person purges themselves out of contempt by testifying. The statute literally says that. Miss Bumpus, well, I'm going to look it up because it was my understanding that it was until the end of the trial. Miss Love, nope. Here it is. Literally the words of the statute. The judge says he could be in there a while. Let's put it that way. Miss Bumpus says, I just want to be able to give him, interrupted by the judge again. I know. It's kind of the statute says, you know, that you purge, but I can't keep him in there indefinitely. Miss Bumpus, right. That is all I want to know. The court, you know, the whole thing is that he has the keys to his own freedom, and that freedom is that if he just gives testimony, then he's purged it. Miss Bumpus, right. Miss Love, and you know whatever that testimony is, we know what we believe it to be, but you know, we don't know what it is. We can't talk about it. You know, I mean, we don't know what he's going to say. We have an idea. We know what he's told us. Miss Bumpus, yeah. Miss Love, I know that the court said essentially that Mr. Melnick probably told him essentially, you should testify. They are not going to. They can't do anything with your testimony. But what we ever being said was they are going to hammer you, as if we're going to expose Kenneth Copeland. Miss Bumpus, Bumpus, you heard that? Miss Love, yes. Mr. Melnick told Mr. Copeland we're going to hammer him. The court. Now, to be fair, and I think Miss Bumpus, as an advocate or anybody, has got to tell him he's going to face some pretty significant cross-examination. Yeah, that's just his lawyer saying, like, yo, they're gonna try to make you look bad, make you look like a snitch up there. Are you sure you want to testify? What's wrong about a defense lawyer warning their client about that? I don't understand that. Miss Bumpus, yeah, I think that's what he meant. Miss Love, so he meant the defense is going to hammer him? No, that's not what... Miss Love has this shit all up. She's talking about you. Miss Bumpus, no, just in general, it's not going to be a hey, da. Miss Love, he knew that. He already been expressing that. The judge says, I think that if he's concerned about that, well, you know, but it's all in the message and the packaging in terms of, I think Mr. Copeland is, you know, a savvy person, but you know, he's certainly going to be subject to a thorough and shifting cross-examination. Miss Bumpus, can I just say something in Attorney Melnick defense's response, just for the record? Miss Love, yes. The reason he doesn't want to move forward with representation, what I've been told, if he decides to testify, is that he doesn't know what was said outside of his presence. So he doesn't feel like he can adequately represent him or his counsel because he doesn't know what he is told to the state when he wasn't there. Miss Love, but the thing is that the only thing he should be concerned about is the criminal exposure or the exposure that Kenneth Copeland has criminally, and there's nothing. The only thing that would put him in harm's way is a lie and a refusal to testify after being ordered to do so by the court. And by a lie, we don't mean like, oh, I think you lying, you know, it would have to be, you know, something obvious, you know, because we can't always impeach. But if he literally perjures himself, and that's something different, we can't help that. We can't control that. We would only say, tell the truth. I don't care about it is. Just tell the truth. So, you know, like he says, I didn't go to the police station. Court. And I think part of this challenge, Miss Bumpus, may be that you need to assure him, look, I'm going to be here. And if you think that they're asking you a question, they being the state or the defense is asking you a question that's going to bring out other crimes that you're going to, he's going to talk to be able to look at you and say, can I have a chance to talk with you? Miss Love says, that's exactly right. Miss Bumpus, Miss Love, see, but that's just it. Miss Bumpus, no, he's not. Miss Love, hold on. That's just it, Judge. The problem is that there's been assertion that people are representing, and I'm not talking about you, that their biggest concern is the best interest, and then they are just not here. And Miss Bumpus is saying that she's not in the position to do that. No, I'm not saying I'm not in a position. I'm saying that the agreement between Mr. Copeland and Melnick, who I'm standing in for, is that if he chooses to testify, I'm to get him to sign this paper that he says then discharges Mr. Melnick as his rep. That's their agreement. I can't do nothing about it. That sounds weird. That does not sound like something in Mr. Copeland's best interest. That sounds like protecting somebody else's best interest. If you talk, I'm not going to represent you. I don't even know what to do with that. Well, he said he does not know what he said. Miss Love says it doesn't really matter what he said. Miss Bumpus, right. Miss Love, it doesn't matter, and he didn't ask us. He didn't even inquire what have you all talked about. He has been talking to Brian C. on Max Sharp. That's it. He is not talking to us. And in fact, when Mr. Copeland asked to speak with us, Mr. Melnick barges in and gets between Miss Hilton and Mr. Copeland and literally keeps us from talking to him before he gets called to the stand, and that's troubling. That sounds like an attorney keeping his client away from a prosecutor. I mean, I get both perspectives. The state's freaked out that he doesn't want to represent him if he testifies. Defense lawyer is saying he doesn't know what he said when he wasn't there, so he's not going to do it. Well, I think what happened was, and I say this because I previously represented Mr. Copeland, previously on his other stuff, I think how attorney Melnick came involved was his representation of other, because he took my place. Copeland fired me and hired Melnick, and then this came about. And I think so at the beginning, Melnick was representing him. Miss Love, and his criminal matter that he had, but that's resolved. Miss Bumpus, but when the case started, Melnick called me and told me that he was representing him as a witness at the beginning. I can assert that. This is 2 years ago. Miss Love, as a matter of fact, less than 2 years ago when Copeland was sitting in jail for something else he had done, Melnick said, I don't represent him. And people were in the room. He was on speaker and he told me he didn't represent him. Now he ultimately did come about and represent him, but we were trying to get, I guess, Miss Bumpus something. Yeah. Miss Love, Copeland was like, he's not my lawyer. I don't have a lawyer. He's not my lawyer. Miss Bumpus, are you talking about recently? Miss Love, so recently Copeland said that Melnick was not his lawyer. Miss Bumpus, right. Miss Love, when Copeland was in jail, Melnick told him he wasn't his lawyer. But our understanding was that Melnick was his lawyer for those criminal charges. And so that person that came in and argued, or at least stood in for him on his bond and then on his subsequent plea, was Melnick. I don't know whose interest he would be representing when he's not talking to us about what we've spoken to Copeland about. He could ask us and we would tell him, you know, so I don't know why he would withdraw his representation of him. If his interest is Kenneth Copeland, then why would he pull out? The court, that doesn't make sense. Miss Love, at the point where he would face the most peril, if that is his concern, the court, and I thought that Miss Hilton had a list of questions for Mr. Copeland anyway. Miss Love, she did. He didn't ask to see those. The court, well, can't you all share that with Miss Bumpus? Miss Love, well, Miss Hilton has already shared it with Mr. Copeland, and we certainly will share it generally speaking. Miss Bumpus, can I read the email that Melnick sent me? I don't know if this will help you understand what he's saying. It says, hey, Kayla, I wasn't able to see Kenneth today. He went on Saturday and tried to talk to him before his flight. But I talked to his family, so at first Kenneth was going to testify, but now he's decided to take the 5th. He may change his mind on Monday. If he does, then he's agreed to discharge me as his attorney. This isn't out of bad feelings, but I was not present when he met with the DA's office, so I can't really help him with his testimony. And then he gave me the discharge and told me that if he decides to testify, then he's going to sign this. Miss Love, and that's just it. It's like you never know what somebody's going to ask. And if he's concerned about putting him in legal jeopardy, then it would seem like he would remain and allow Mr. Copeland access to counsel when Mr. Copeland is concerned that he's about to walk into an area that puts him in legal jeopardy. Miss Bumpus, you can't switch how he gets called. Miss Love, see, that's not in Mr. Copeland's best interest. That's in the defendant's best interest. When you say switch and how he gets called, what does that have to do with anything? Miss Bumpus, I don't know. Maybe he's saying he can't do it because he can't get his refundable ticket. Mr. Melnick had a vacation plan. That's a refundable ticket, like literally like flight tickets. And I guess Miss Bumpus is requesting to push back Woody's testimony. That is not what he said in the email to you, and that is not what he relayed to court. Miss Bumpus, I tried to go back and watch as much as I could. The court telling me what he was, that he was going on vacation. I said, well, you inserted yourself in this. I said, really, you need to come on Monday. Miss Love, so you can't force Mr. Copeland to discharge him just because Mr. Copeland decides to testify. The court, I think you are in until it's done. Miss Bumpus, who, me? Miss Bumpus is like, wait, I gotta be here until this is over? Woody? What? The court, yeah, Miss Love. And frankly, Your Honor, I know that if a person faces criminal contempt, they are entitled to representation if they want it. The court, not necessarily. Anybody who's facing contempt can get counsel. I mean, you know, not anybody, but Miss Bumpus, I can't stay. How long is this going to take? Miss Love, it might take some days. Miss Bumpus, Miss Love, see, that's just it. I think Miss Bumpus is put in a precarious position. She's not the one that stood up and injected herself in this. They reached out to her and she did him a favor. But ultimately, it seems as if Mr. Melnick is stalling and attempting to delay and hamper and hinder our proceedings. And that is a problem because this has nothing to do with the best interests of Kenneth Copeland, and that has nothing to do with Kenneth Copeland's exposure if he testifies. It sounds like Mr. Melnick was just scared for his client's safety if he testifies, and he had a vacation planned. He's allowed to go on a vacation. Just to answer the question about what he's exposed to, the statute is very clear, very clear. It literally says that no testimony or any evidence required under the court's order or any information directly or indirectly derived from such testimony or evidence shall be used against the person in any proceeding or prosecution for a crime or offense concerning which he testified or produces evidence under the court order. So Miss Love's just reiterating the immunity deal. The judge says he started talking about an unrelated crime, which is what the biggest thing I think he's probably thinking about is that, yeah, there's a lot of stuff they could ask me about. Miss Love, right. The judge, that is not known to a lot of people, and that, you know, he could also invoke his Fifth Amendment with the advice of counsel if it is some other particular crime. The court, even that, he'll still have to testify. Miss Love, literally right. So here's Miss Love clarifying the whole accusation that Mr. Melnick is delaying it. She says, okay, and then about the delay or stall, isn't it true or is it not true that he had a leave filed since December? Miss Love, we had nothing to do with any of that. He injected himself into this. He stepped in. The court, when you get involved, I don't know you have a leave. Miss Love, right. Court, and unless you filed that leave into this case, you don't have a leave for my case. Miss Love, and he did not. The court, so he didn't have one. Miss Love, Mr. Copeland's been a witness and a name on this witness list since court. So since he said, well, I represent him, I'm like, okay, well, you don't have a leave. That's filed in our case. Miss Bumpus, okay. Miss Love, so he did this to himself and he did it to you. You know, that is just where it is. Miss Bumpus, so judge, you're going to make me stay if he chooses to testify. The court, I am because you're his lawyer. You're a standing lawyer at this point. Miss Bumpus, Your Honor, I don't have a problem with that. I'm not ready. The judge, there's nothing for you to be ready about. I mean, here's the thing. I think the only thing you've got to kind of go ask him about is, look, here's the questions the state is going to ask you. All right. Is there anything else that could hurt you that they might ask you about? And as long as you have knowledge of that, then I think you're fine because the state's going to get into this. Now, the reason you want to know what's going to hurt you is the defendants know more about Kenneth Copeland than anybody else. So they're probably going to kind of, Miss Bumpus, what about if I say I can't do it? Then Mr. Melnick needs to come back, right? And I'm going to be in trouble because I was only for Monday. That's what I was told. I was given specific ... Miss Love, I don't know what Mr. Copeland wants. It's his choice. Miss Bumpus, can't he say he doesn't want Melnick? Miss Love, he can say whatever he wants. It's his choice. Miss Love, I don't think he can be forced to have representation if he doesn't want, need, or say he wants it because we have done everything to clear him of judicial exposure. There's nothing he can say. He could lie. That puts him in, you know, the court peril. Miss Love, but you know, he can't talk about a crime that we could then prosecute him for. The court, that is involving this or some other place. Miss Love, right. We can't use this testimony to go and find evidence to prosecute him for the stuff he talks about. Basically, he is literally shielded. Miss Bumpus, I would have to agree with you that I don't think that's the concern. Isn't that what you said? I'm saying with Mr. Copeland not testifying, you said you don't think that his concern is criminal exposure, or you do think that is what he's worried about. The court, do you think that he's fearful of testifying for other reasons, like for his personal safety? Miss Bumpus, right. Woody has not been acting like that publicly. Bro's been posting his location on Instagram story. That is what Mr. Melnick said to me in an email I can pull up. Miss Love said. Miss Bumpus, but you don't believe that. Miss Love, you're going to get him killed. That's what he said. We ain't going to kill him. Miss Bumpus, see, I don't know anything about that email. Miss Love, we ain't going to kill him. I can show you the email, but we're not going to kill Kenneth Copeland. So who is he talking about? So what are you trying to do? The court, that is a collateral second and third order effect. You know, let's pray it doesn't happen, but the judge is like, yeah, let's just throw him under the bus. Let's go. Let's risk it. Jesus Christ. The court. First, he has to give testimony, though. I mean, that's what he has to do. He's got to give the testimony, whatever it is. Good, bad, or indifferent, I should say. Miss Love, so we would like, with the court's permission, they haven't brought him over, and he was supposed to be the first one up, so I guess they went to get him. They might be over here with him now. The court. Is he in here now? Miss Love, I don't know. Judge Glanville exited the chambers at 9:33 a.m. Miss Love, we would like to just go into another courtroom and talk to him. Give you a chance to talk to him, and then give you an opportunity to explain to him. The court reporter, we're off the record. Brief recess. Judge Glanville and Mr. Chamberlain entered chambers at 9:34 a.m. Miss Love, Miss Hilton has been communicating with him. I'd like to grab her from downstairs and have her come up. The court, where's Mr. Copeland? Mr. Chamberlain, they took him upstairs to the tank at 9. The court, okay, can we bring him out? The proceedings stood in recess from 9:34 to 10:03. Mr. Copeland entered chambers at 10:03. Mr. Copeland, can you let him know I got a hearing problem? Wait, he's still saying the hearing problem shit? That's the first thing he says? Miss Bumpus, okay, he said he can. He is hard of hearing. The court, that makes 2 of us, so I'll try and talk loud if it is okay. Mr. Copeland, yeah, I can read lips. The court, okay, good. Mr. Copeland, good morning. I just wanted to bring you over and let you talk with Miss Bumpus and see if there is anything that you need to ask of your counsel or Miss Hilton or the state or the court before we bring you out this morning, because we would like to hear your testimony, and that is kind of where we're going at this point. So is there anything you want to ask? Mr. Copeland, why I want to speak to you personally, that I've never been truthful a day in my life until I just made this statement right now. I don't comprehend none of this stuff that's going on. The court, okay, well, the only thing you can give is truthful testimony. I mean, whatever you know is whatever you know. I mean, that's it. Okay. Ms. Hilton, Mr. Copeland and I, we've talked about this. I'm not sure what your concerns are, what concerns that you expressed to Mr. Melnick last week. If any of your concerns deal with being locked up for anything, you can't. Like, there's nothing that can happen. Ms. Bumpus says no. I said that's not his concern. Ms. Hilton, if his concern is safety, we need to know that. Like, that's not expressed, so we don't know what his concern or so that we can try to resolve the concern. Mr. Copeland and I have conversations before. I understand some of his concerns is potential criminal liability. Hence why we gave you immunity. The federal statute of limitations done. The state statute of limitations done. Crazy. That's how bad they want Woody to snitch. They're like, you can't be charged in the state or federally. That's insane. Like, I researched it this weekend again. Both those statute of limitations for what you and I talked about, which is in 2015 or before, done. You cannot be prosecuted for anything you testified federally or statewide. Immune, period. So if that is a concern, there's none, because you cannot be prosecuted. The federal statute of limitations is 5 years. So anything in 2015, 5 years would have been done in 2020. Anything statewide is 4 years. It would have been done in 2019, finished. So how the fuck are all these guys on trial? The fuck? All this is from 9 years ago. I'm just joking. I'm sure it means something else. But next concern, what may happen in the street? You know what we talked about, what we can do as far as living and all that. We have had those conversations. So they've talked about witness protection, housing and shit. That's crazy. I know you wanted to talk to me on Friday before you walked into court. We weren't able to talk. If you still want to talk with or without Miss Bumpus, I'm here, but we do not want you in custody. I don't know if you kept your copy of the order, but this order literally says you are immune from prosecution, any of it. Judge, you might want to close your ears. What? If you confess to a murder on the stand, if we don't have any other independent evidence outside of what you say on the stand, you are immune from prosecution from what you say in court. Why did she tell the judge to cover his ears? So again, I don't know what was communicated to you on Friday. I have no idea, but the state has assured you, which I've assured you in our private conversations with Mr. Long, as I'm saying in front of Miss Bumpus, as I told you, that is what this order says. The court, and that is direct or cross-examination. So if you're worried about what the defendants may ask you because they may know your business, but if they ask you about things that you might think you have some liability with, you can be prosecuted for any of those. Mr. Copeland, I got family members watching this trial, and I don't want my nephew and them to hear the things that I may be involved in and think it's okay. Yeah, that's actually kind of sad. Bro's trying to be a role model for his nephew. Miss Hilton, but I think that's a separate conversation you can have with them as an honest individual. Look, nephews, I done lived the life that I don't want you to live. Don't go through what I've been through. That's something you can have outside of being in jail, because that's a better conversation you can have with your nephews in person. But they shouldn't have to come to DeKalb County Jail because you're being held in contempt. You can have that conversation with your nephews tomorrow in person. You can have the conversation with anybody, you know, what's coming this weekend. Why are we in jail? What are we doing? Mr. Copeland, but y'all did this intentionally. Miss Hilton, no, we did not. You and I had this conversation with Mr. Copeland on Friday. Mr. Copeland, you knew my child's birthday was next week. Miss Hilton, but what did I tell you? When we met with each other, you asked me, what is the one thing that's going to get me in jail? Didn't you ask me that? And what was my response? If you pled the fifth. And that is exactly what you did on the stand. Mr. Copeland, but what did I tell you before I got to that point? I told you the whole time, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Miss Hilton, but I told you we were giving you immunity. Mr. Copeland, that I was pleading the fifth. Miss Hilton, no, you did not. Mr. Copeland, I told you every day I was pleading the fifth. I told you my concern. Miss Hilton, and we said we could give you immunity. You said your concern is what they know about you. You said, well, you know stuff about them. And then I said, whatever your concerns are, we can give you immunity. Mr. Copeland, so I didn't tell you I lied on them to get myself out of the situation? Miss Hilton, you said you were a liar. That's what you said. You said you were a liar. Miss Bumpus, was this recorded? Miss Hilton, no. Miss Bumpus, Bumpus, and did he ever say that Mr. Melnick was his attorney? Miss Hilton, no. This week when we first met you in the car on Friday, we asked you, is Mr. Melnick your attorney? You said he's not my attorney. I haven't even talked to him. Mr. Copeland, no, I never said he's not my attorney. I said I haven't talked to him. Miss Hilton, you said he's not your attorney. You haven't talked to him. Then we continued to have a conversation. At no point did you ever say, hey, I want Mr. Melnick here. Hey, put Mr. Melnick on the phone. Mr. Copeland, you didn't make me feel like I needed him. Oh. What are you saying that she was acting kind of slick and making it sound like he didn't need a lawyer? Miss Hilton, if you would have needed Mr. Melnick, we would have said, okay, just call him. So, I mean, that is our position. We don't want you in jail. We just want you to be able to purge yourself by testifying. Whatever your truth is what your truth is, but you just got to answer the questions. We know what you said before. I don't know what you're going to say on the stand, but what we know is pleading the fifth is going to keep you in custody. That's what I know. Now, how you answer your questions is how you answer your questions. This is a fine line of her f***ing with coercion right here. Like, you're going to be in jail if you don't testify, so you better go up there. I never went into full details about any of it, but what I don't want is you to be sitting here in custody. Mr. Copeland, you did it. Ms. Hilton, I did not do it. You did it by pleading the fifth. Mr. Copeland, you told me when I'm asked a question, I can say I don't recall or I don't know. You told me, why would I plead the fifth to something I ain't do? And I said that you don't know what I did and what I didn't do. And then y'all asked for this immunity. It was something. And then Friday came and y'all got to tell me, oh, we went to the judge with this, so you got to testify. If you don't testify, the judge is going to lock you up. That's crazy. Ms. Copeland says, you said, why would I plead the fifth to something I didn't do? And I said, you don't know what happened. Ms. Hilton says, and I said, I don't know what happened. Only you and them know, I said, but you never said I am pleading the fifth. You said, what if I do this? What if I do this? What if I do this? Mr. Copeland, I told you, I said I'm going to plead the fifth. You said, why would you plead the fifth to something that you know you didn't do? Talking about the Donovan Thomas murder. Ms. Bumpus, so if you didn't have immunity prior to, is that what you're saying, that you feel like he didn't have immunity prior to? Mr. Copeland, immunity came Friday right when I went to the jail. Ms. Hilton, the immunity came after Mr. Melnick sent us an email saying my client is pleading the fifth. That was on Thursday evening at 6 p.m. So after that was an emphatic he is pleading the fifth. Ms. Bumpus, we came in and got this signed, Ms. Hilton says, the immunity deal. Ms. Bumpus, so are you pretty much saying you didn't ask for this? Mr. Copeland, I didn't. Ms. Hilton, right, he doesn't have to ask for it. But to alleviate whatever his concerns were, we gave him immunity. Ms. Bumpus, I'm just saying this so we can understand it. I'm walking him through. Would he still have to testify, or would he have been able to plead the fifth? That's what he's saying. Ms. Hilton, if he did not have immunity, question mark? Ms. Bumpus, yes. Ms. Hilton, yes, he could plead the fifth. Ms. Bumpus, that's what he's trying to say. He's trying to say he didn't ask for this. Ms. Hilton, but he doesn't have to ask for it. So now we have given it to him. It's an order. He can still choose if this is the road he wants to take. Then he'll just have to stay in custody until the trial's over. And when we say the trial's over, every last defendant has been tried. Not just these 6, the other ones too. I mean, this is straight up like, yo, you're gonna be in jail for years if you don't testify. That's kind of crazy, right? Mr. Copeland, I done did longer time. Woody standing strong. Miss Hilton, all right, Mr. Copeland, I'm telling you that you are literally immune from prosecution from anything else you might say. That's that. So the choice is always up to you, but we wanted to put on the record the state does not want you in custody. What the state would like you to do is purge yourself from Mr. Copeland. What purge yourself mean? He's been explaining what purge yourself means probably dead times. You have to testify, brother. Miss Hilton, meaning that you are no longer in custody, and the way you purge yourself is to testify. That is kind of how it happens, and that is what the state wants you to do. We don't want you in custody. And I can't say that any other different way, but we don't want you in custody. The only thing that's holding you is you refusing to testify. The judge, so you have any questions? Any other questions? Mr. Copeland, I don't know what's going on. I don't trust nobody. I trust her word, but I don't know what's going on, Your Honor. Miss Hilton, this is your insurance. I don't know if you want to break that down to him. Miss Bumpus, well, he doesn't want that. Miss Bumpus hasn't really helped him at all. She's just been like, he just doesn't like any of this. He hasn't asked for any of this. The judge reiterates again, he has been given it. See, that's the challenge, Mr. Copeland, is that if they didn't give you this immunity, you could invoke your Fifth Amendment privilege. But what the state decided is that they said your testimony is worth more to them at this point in time, and they really want to know what you have to say. From the state's perspective, they made a decision to give you immunity, so you no longer can invoke your Fifth Amendment privilege. You have to testify. So that's the difference in this particular scenario. Well, you can still invoke your Fifth Amendment privilege. You can still do that, but the consequence of invoking it is you will have to remain in custody. So the judge's even getting on the state side like, yo, you're going to stay in jail for years if you don't do this right now. These fuckers are playing with a fine line here. So if you testify, you can get out of custody and you can stay out of custody until you are done. Mr. Copeland, and then if I don't testify, I have to stay in until when? The judge, until the trial's over, until all the defendants have been, I've got these 6 that we have right now, and then there's another 6. Ms. Hilton, no, there's another 12. The court, there's another 12 or thereabouts that are still outstanding in various forms or another. Mr. Copeland, can I speak with her for a second? The court, yeah. Everyone leaves the chambers at 10:17 a.m. and return at 10:33 a.m. So Ms. Bumpus and Copeland have a 15-minute conversation, 16-minute conversation now, privately. Apparently the judge lied at some point saying that this was over an hour private conversation, and now it's changed. So I don't know what happened with that. Mr. Copeland, I can ask you a question? The court, yes. yes. Mr. Copeland, so what I was just asking her was, if you ask me a question and you feel as in I was lying about, you will lock me back up? Ms. Hilton, no. If you are saying that you say, I didn't talk to Demikian, well, no, I can't talk about that because the judge is in here. She realized she was talking about the case with the judge and then she stopped. You were asking for an example. If you said before that the sky was blue and I asked you in the stand, what color is the sky? And you say, I said it was red. I'm going to say no. Back before you said it was blue. Is that what you're trying to ask me? Ms. Bumpus, So explain the independent evidence. If he says he did something and you know he's not telling the truth, what happens? Ms. Hilton, if he said he did something and he did not do that thing? Ms. Bumpus, so if you believe that he's lying about that? Ms. Hilton, then no. If he admits to doing something on the stand and he did not do that thing, I'm going to say, is this the first time you were saying that? Ms. Bumpus, and you have independent evidence to prove it wasn't him, then what? Ms. Hilton, then nothing. What do you mean? Like, Ms. Bumpus says, so then he will be fine? Ms. Hilton, yes, but Ms. Bumpus, so you're okay with him if he got on the stand and said things that weren't true? Ms. Hilton, no, I want him to tell the truth. What have I always said to you? I want you to tell the truth. I don't know what's going to come out of your mouth. I expect you to tell the truth. If you say something that is inconsistent with what you said before, then I'm going to ask about the inconsistencies. But I expect you to tell the truth. What you go on the stand and do, I don't know. I don't know what you're going to do. I want you to tell the truth, but I would deal with you saying something different in the manner that I normally do. So she's talking about just impeaching him. Mr. Copeland, so the police question me. They done question me every time they lock me up. I don't know how many times that was. I done told them whatever story I could think of to try to finesse my way out of the situation. I don't recall what I done told them. So he said that on the stand, like, I was just lying. I was making up shit to finesse my way out of the situation. He said that several times. Woody was a known liar. Literally like the worst fucking witness possible for the state. I don't understand how this is a star witness. He's a known liar. It's not credible. Ms. Hilton, okay, so you can say, I don't recall. That is how this works. Ms. Bumpus, and he can say that to every single question? Ms. Hilton, I would hope that that is not the truth because I think there are some things you do recall and some things you don't. But the things you don't recall, you don't recall. And then I will go through my process of what I do. You can talk to him about what impeachment is. That won't get you locked up. Impeachment will not get you locked up. So I was right about her describing impeachment. Mr. Copeland, what will get me locked up? Ms. Hilton, what did I tell you? Mr. Copeland, I don't know. Ms. Hilton, what you did on Friday? I pled the 5th. So the only thing that gets me locked up is pleading the 5th. Ms. Bumpus, yes. Ms. Hilton, the court instructed you, you need to answer the question. You saying I plead the 5th, again, that's what's going to get you locked up. But if you answer the question, that will not get you locked up. Mr. Copeland, so if you don't want me in jail, why you just don't let me go after the trial over with? Ms. Hilton, you are in jail because you are not answering the questions. The court, because you have been given immunity. Mr. Copeland, well, what about this? I answer the questions. You take away the immunity. I answer the questions and I plead the 5th. Ms. Hilton, no. Mr. Copeland, to questions that I feel incriminate me. Mr. Copeland, I won't plead the 5th to things that incriminate me. The court, the state can still give you immunity. They can give you immunity to whoever they want and they can make that choice. I don't even make the choice. Like I said earlier, they want your testimony. They figure that the jury needs to hear what you have to say, good, bad, or indifferent. And what Ms. Hilton is telling you is that just tell the truth as you know, let her worry about it. I mean, even though you have said different versions of whatever, that's for impeachment. That's not going to get you in trouble. Yeah, honestly, this is classic Woody kind of acting dumb. Woody is scared about looking like a snitch on the stand. He doesn't want to snitch on his boys or old friends at least. That's what this is. What will get you in trouble is you just invoking your 5th Amendment privilege because you have been given immunity. Or as Miss Love said this morning, remember Miss Love said if you overtly lie about something, like if you tell a bold-faced whopper, then they can indict you on that particular false statement. So just perjury, charging with perjury if it's, an obvious. Mr. Copeland, that's what they're going to do. Mr. Bumpus, that is what I was saying. You will be right back here. Mr. Copeland, like murder, don't have no statute of limitations, right? Miss Hilton, well, if you didn't do it, I can't charge you with something you didn't do because I don't have any other evidence besides you saying it. Miss Bumpus, you can charge him with false statements and he will go back in jail. That is what I'm trying to say. It would have to be a big lie, like admitting to killing Diamond Thomas on the stand in front of the jury. That'd be very bad. I would imagine the state would be livid. Miss Hilton, but if I know that you are lying about that, I do not intend to do that. If I know right now he's lying, I know he's lying. I'm not going to charge you because I don't know your reason for doing that. But I'm not going to charge you when I say you didn't do what you were trying to say you did now. And that can be a part of this. I know you didn't do it. Mr. Copeland, but it's up to the judge to do that. Miss Hilton, no, it's up to the state to bring charges. The court, I don't have anything to do with that. Miss Hilton, he has nothing to do with bringing charges. That's up to the state of Georgia. Mr. Copeland, can I talk to my family and I will make my decision right after I hang up the phone? Ms. Bumpus, he's saying he hasn't been able to speak to anybody. Miss Hilton, his sister just called us. Mr. Copeland, y'all done me wrong. Y'all just hold me in jail. Don't let me get a pen or nothing. Ms. Bumpus, he hasn't been able to do anything, speak to anyone. Mr. Copeland, the jail system down, but y'all still putting people in. Miss Hilton, that part I don't know. I know we have been in communication with your sister. Your sister actually texted me to make sure you were okay. We told her we officially had laid eyes on you. Mr. Copeland, so what do you think she's saying? I'm talking about that locking me back up. Miss Hilton, we would have to bring charges. Miss Copeland, y'all will. Miss Hilton, we've already had this discussion. Miss Copeland, look what you did to me. You waited until Friday and did this. I done told you every day before Friday that I was pleading the 5th. Miss Hilton, no you did not. So apparently someone's lying. Did Woody ever tell them he's pleading the 5th? He's saying that Miss Hilton's lying. So I don't know who to believe here, dude. The court, Mr. Copeland, let's see if we can get beyond this, okay? Beyond what your concern is. You could have invoked your 5th Amendment privilege. The state could have turned around and said stop and had me go ahead and file that motion to give you immunity. They make that decision. They decide to make it on Friday. I thought it was was Thursday at 6 p.m. So even if you would have been more comfortable testifying and invoking your privilege, they could decide you as a witness. They want your testimony more than they do invoking your Fifth Amendment privilege, so they give you immunity. They gave you immunity so you can testify truthfully as to what your knowledge of a particular incident is. Even if they put you on stand, they could have said stop and gone ahead and give you immunity. They could have done that. Just open. So I can get it in some type of writing that if I was to testify, that if she feels as in I lied about anything, that they won't lock me back up. The court, let me have that, Miss Bumpus. Miss Bumpus hands document to the judge. The judge says, Mr. Copeland, on page 2 of the order, pursuant to OCGA 24-5-507, however, no testimony given by Kenneth Copeland is required under this order, or any other information directly or indirectly derived from the testimony of Kenneth Copeland given by Kenneth Copeland as required under this oath shall be used against him. Blah, blah. We already know the basic immunity deal bullshit. He's repeating it to him because Kenneth is acting stupid about immunity. Okay, so you can testify about some aggravated assault or murder. They can't prosecute you on it because that is what it says on the order. The only thing that will get you in trouble is this next little paragraph. Kenneth Copeland shall be subject to prosecution or penalty or forfeiture for any perjury, false swearing, or contempt committed in testifying or failing to testify in accordance with this order. However, it is ordered that Kenneth Copeland shall not be required to produce evidence that can be used in any other court in the state, the United States, or any other state. So basically, if you commit perjury, false swearing, or contempt committed in testifying, that means if you just invoke your Fifth Amendment privilege or failing to testify, you can say, I'm not going to testify. So the only two things that you can kind of get in trouble for are perjury or false swearing, as long as you tell the truth. Now, as Ms. Hilton and Ms. Bumpus said earlier, you may have told or been asked about situations over and over again. They may have changed. What the state is asking you to do is tell the version that really is the truth. If they want to impeach you, they can. Or if the other side wants to impeach you, they can. You won't get in trouble for that. Mr. Copeland said, you said I will. You will not. What, he's acting dumb, or he actually is just dumb. He doesn't understand what perjury is, I think. He has immunity for all crimes he committed, basically. But perjury is just like scaring him about being locked up again. The court, you will not. Impeachment is not perjury or false swearing, okay? Ms. Copeland, but she said I can perjure myself, though. Ms. Hilton, no. We're saying two different things. Sorry. Perjury is that if you get on the stand and you say just a bold-faced lie, just something that is just wrong. Say, I did something, and all the other times you said, I've not done it. And really, while it's perjury, it's really just an inconsistent statement. Like if you get on the stand and say, I did X, but in 2015 you said I never did X, that is what I'm going to impeach. I'm going to impeach you on everything you said in 2015, meaning I'm going to say, okay, say you said I did X, but in 2015 you did the other. Lieutenant Dean enters. We have a security issue. We need to stop for a minute. If we can stop for a second, please. What happened at that point in time? They come back 2 minutes later. Ms. Hilton, I don't know what was told to you on Friday. I have no reason to want you in prison. You have spent enough time in prison for YSL, period. So why would I want that for you? That doesn't make no sense. I said to all the people before, I will say it to you again in front of all these people. It makes no sense. Mr. Copeland, you just said I'm going to have to stay in jail until the last. Ms. Hilton, if you don't testify, get this part through your head. That is literally the only thing holding you right now is the fact that you keep saying I'm not going to testify. Well, you haven't said it today. I'm not testifying. I plead the fifth. I want you to tell you the truth. Like I said before, if you don't recall certain things, you can say you don't recall. That's fine. I want you to tell the truth. I don't expect you to remember every single thing from 2015. I just don't. No one here does. But all I expect for you to do is answer your questions so you can get through this. So you can go home, be with your baby for her birthday, see the dogs deliver their babies, and go talk to your nephews and do all the other things. Miss Copeland, how do you know about my dogs? Wait, who told her about his dogs, man? You got a pregnant dog? Miss Hilton, because you told me. Mr. Copeland, okay. Miss Bumpus, what's wrong? Miss Copeland, I'm stressed at another level. Like, I'm weak, man. I'm not playing. I'm dead serious, man. Like, Miss Hilton, this is what our position is. We do not want him in custody. We just want him to tell the truth. We want him to testify. That's what will get him out of jail. Miss Bumpus, if he decides in 2 weeks he wants to testify, then what? Miss Hilton, I don't know what you would want to stay in jail for 2 weeks. I have no idea. Miss Bumpus, he just feels like he's under a lot of pressure right now. Mr. Copeland, even at the jail, they were just like, you can't give me house arrest? Miss Hilton, no, you can go home by taking the stand and testifying. The court, and come back tomorrow. Miss Hilton, we keep saying yet, but there's no crime. We keep on saying yet. I don't know who is telling you about a crime. There's no crime. Miss Copeland, so why am I in jail then? Holy shit, Woody, you are playing dumb, brother. You know why you're in jail. They gave you immunity. It's forcing you to testify. It sucks, I know, but that's what's happening. He's playing dumb in this whole situation. But Miss Hilton and Miss Love and the judge basically threatening him with years of jail. It's a fine line, boys. It's a fine line. So why am I in jail then, he says? Miss Hilton, because you aren't testifying for the 50th time. Mr. Copeland, but that ain't nothing wrong. It's not a crime. Miss Hilton, it's not a crime, but you're in civil contempt. The court. 2 things. Because you invoked your privilege after you said you have been given immunity, that is why you're in custody. Because you get out by testifying. So you testify, you get out. That's why I brought you here earlier today just to inquire about that. You can remain and hold your position of invoking the fifth or not testifying, but you go back to prison. You go back to jail. Mr. Copeland, you can't sentence me? Mr. Bumpus, there's no sentence. The court, there's no sentence. The contempt is compliance. Kind of crazy how the court has the power to do this, right? Like, that's like ridiculous. They have the power to keep this in jail for basically not committing a crime. Just saying, I don't want to talk. I plead the fifth. That's crazy. Just because he has immunity. It might be a little bit too much power, in my opinion. They want your testimony. That is all they want, whatever that may be. Mr. Copeland, I don't know what it is, Your Honor. Miss Hilton, so listen, you're in jail for failing to testify. The court, failing to testify. Miss Hilton, not for nothing else. There is no crime. You ain't do nothing. I don't know if people are telling you that we are going to charge you with nothing. We are not charging you. The state charges you. you. There's nothing we're charging you with. You are only in custody because you have decided not to testify. That's it. Court, remember the word you were talking about? Purge, Ms. Copen? Okay, you can purge right now. Get yourself out of jail by testifying. This is a lot of like, I mean, I feel like the judge is trying to explain it to him because he's acting like he doesn't understand, but like, it sounds a lot like witness intimidation because you're threatening him with years in jail. Mr. Copen, I can purge and get out of jail. The court, yes, just by testifying. Ms. Hilton, not perjury. The court, purge, meaning you can get out of jail. You can get out of jail, out of custody by testifying. Mr. Copen, and what about the other one? The other words, perjury. Holy shit, he doesn't know the difference between purging, his contempt, and perjury. So this whole ex parte meeting was Kenneth acting stupid. They're trying to explain to him the difference and why he's in jail. That's all this was. The court, that's different. Ms. Hilton, that's different. The court, that's a different word, okay? Mr. Copen, that can get me back in jail? Ms. Hilton, yes. What you were saying is not perjury. What you're saying is what we call a prior inconsistent statement. Your example that you gave me. What if I said I did something and I know you didn't do it? And you said because you didn't do it, that's not perjury. That is a prior inconsistent statement. Ms. Bumpus, you've got to make a decision. So if he starts testifying today, he's going to go home today. Ms. Hilton, he should as long as he remains. But if you go up there testifying and then we get into it and you start saying, I plead the fifth, we're going to have to come back here again. Ms. Bumpus, but what if he says he don't recall everything? He'll be okay? Ms. Hilton, I'm not advising that, but so long he has to answer questions, that's fine. Ms. Copeland, I did these crimes. I'm telling you that. Here we go. This could be the Brady evidence right here. Ms. Hilton, okay, I don't know what you're talking about, but Ms. Bumpus, I think you were saying you want to get up there on the stand and say something. Mr. Copeland, no response. Ms. Bumpus, did we find out if we could talk to his family yet? No. Ms. Hilton, I mean, if it's okay, we got the sister's number. If y'all want to talk, let me go somewhere I can't hear you. The judge is over there, so you can just speak close so he doesn't hear you. The court, hold on. Judge Glanville had documented attorney Caleb Bumpus and exited chambers with everyone else, apparently for 35 minutes. The court, okay, all right. Mr. Copeland, have you had an opportunity to talk with Ms. Bumpus? Your lawyer, Ms. Hilton, the state's counsel, have you got any other questions? Ms. Copeland, no, Your Honor. The court, is it your desire to give testimony today? Mr. Copeland, yes, sir. The court, okay, do you have clothes for him? Ms. Hilton, I don't know. Let me go take a look. What size are you? Mr. Copeland, I can't hear you. Ms. Hilton, what size are you? Mr. Copeland, little. Little. He said he was size little. They're going to try to get you back in some clothes so you don't have to testify wearing the jail uniform. Mr. Copeland, y'all don't want to show the people how y'all did me? Talking about being in the damn jumpsuit, the jail jumpsuit. If we can't find clothes, then you may have to until tomorrow. Mr. Copeland, I prefer to go in like this. Ms. Hilton, I understand what your preference is. Mr. Copeland, nah, don't hide it. I want to go in there like this. Ms. Hilton, fine with me. The court, all right. Mr. Copeland, you ain't going to try and lock me back up for this? Ms. Hilton, so as long as you testify, we will get an order to get you released. Today, you got to make sure you come back now. Mr. Copeland says, when have I ever ran? Ms. Hilton, you have not. That's the only thing. You have not. Are we off the record now? I believe so. Okay, we're good. See everybody downstairs in 10 minutes. So, did I miss it or did he never admit to killing Donovan Thomas? He said, I did these crimes. And that wasn't really in specific to any situation. That was just like him trying to understand the difference between perjury and purging himself of contempt. This trial might be continuing, boys. The only thing that I could see this judge actually being recused for is not handing all this over to the defense immediately. Let's see what people were saying on Twitter real quick. Shout out Thugger Daily. He says, as a layman, my impression of the state is definitely walking a thin line between this and clearly knowing what he was going to plead the fifth, but nothing insanely inappropriate. The biggest issue to me seems that the defense was not present or informed. Yeah, the judge not handing it over and a defense lawyer not being in the room was definitely sketchy. I mean, at the very least, not disclosing Woody, straight up saying I did these crimes so the defense can cross him on what he meant is a clear Brady violation. Yeah, it was a very vague statement though. Brady evidence might have to be more specific than just I did these crimes. That's very vague. This basically was a long conversation to convince this guy to testify, who clearly didn't want to, but they're forcing him to because they gave him immunity. So it's like a thin line of witness intimidation and coercion. I don't know, dude. It all depends on how the other judge is going to see this. Comment down below what you guys think will happen. I think it's a 50-50 chance the trial could continue, honestly. So that's just my opinion. Hit subscribe. Love you guys. Peace out.